Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another video. And we've got another fun Bad Batch episode review today, but before we get into things, Mass Effect Legendary Edition is out. It's basically a remaster of the original Mass Effect trilogy, and I'm going to start my big-ass playthrough tonight over on my second channel, X2, so link to that down below. Alright, so this morning I sat down and watched episode 3 of The Bad Batch, which was called Replacement, and I thought to myself, how nice is it every week that we've got another show to look forward to on Thursdays? When The Mandalorian airs, it's really something that kind of centers my week. It's something that I'm looking forward to from the second that I finish the current episode. It's just a really nice thing to have as a part of your schedule, and for me, The Bad Batch is already slotted into that position, and to be honest, that's great. By the way, I have my daughter with me again, so if you hear any sounds, that's what that is. So on the surface, Replacements is a Star Wars story we've seen before, certainly in animated format. Basically, the hero ship crashes, it lands on a desolate moon, and everyone has to try to survive, while also, of course, building interpersonal relationships. As that's happening, though, in this episode, we also get some serious character development and world building and kind of forwarding of the major plot on the side of the Empire as we see Crosshair forming his new squad of elite commandos. And I will say, I personally love this format. I think it works really well in Star Wars television shows where not every moment has to be action-packed. For me, this is probably like middle of the tier. On the top end, we've got something like The Honorable Ones from Star Wars Rebels, which was the beginning of the interesting relationship between Zeb and Callus. Then on the lower end, we've got something like that episode from Season 2 of The Mandalorian with the Ice Spiders, which itself wasn't bad per se. We got the introduction of Frog Lady, but that's sort of where the spectrum is for me. And saying that this is right in the middle is definitely not any sort of criticism. It's just when compared with those three, that's where it stands. And The Honorable Ones is a very, very high bar because, to be honest, that's one of my favorite Rebels episodes, and the subversion of Callus's character I think is really interesting, or maybe more the reveal of Callus's character. And there's nothing quite that game-changing in this episode, but I mean, how could there be? We're only 3 episodes into the show. I do, however, like the fact that, as alluded to earlier, although half of the episode is this character building thing, I think the stronger half is actually, as I mentioned, the stuff going on with Crosshair and the Empire. As a brief summary, Crosshair's inhibitor chip was reactivated, and he's now basically an assassin for the Empire. We're now looking into how the Empire is partially transitioning away from clones, how they're moving recruits or volunteers or regular army soldiers now into specialized commando units. And I do think it was interesting as well that these recruits that are added to Crosshair's squads were soldiers during the Clone Wars. And that's interesting because it's something we haven't seen a whole lot of in Star Wars canon, and in Legends really was only alluded to by various source materials. We do know, of course, that clones were the majority of the Republic's fighting force, and we also see planetary defense forces like on Ryloth and other systems, but it seems like the Republic too also had a proper standing army. So I hope we learn more about these characters. We get almost nothing this episode other than the fact that at least some of them don't agree with the Empire's new brutality. So hopefully we get lots of development there, and hopefully we see how either they change and are changed by the Empire's methods or are not. Either way, I think we're in for an interesting plot point. I think this also ties into the greater issue and the greater discussion of why would you want to move away from a clone army. And I think I do want to do a dedicated video to this topic, and I've kind of covered it in the past, but my main theories and my ideas is that people as subjects to an empire will probably be more loyal if they are contributing to the defense of the empire themselves, either through conscription or through family members volunteering to fight within the empire. Not only is there the threat of literally firing on your own soldiers, but more reasonably, I think, it is a method to distill propaganda through the masses and a way to convert people through military service to kind of the ideals of the Empire. Those are my ideas, or at least my basic thoughts. I'll probably expand on them if you guys want in a video, but I also want to hear your guys' take, because I don't buy Tarkin's discussion with the new character introduced, by the way, Admiral Rampart, that the reason they're moving away from clones is because of money. I don't think the Empire has any shortage of money at this point, particularly when it comes to money for militarizing. As I said, I think it has a lot more to do with control. But anyway, Crosshair is particularly brutal this episode. I mean, he's just not a nice dude, particularly with his inhibitor chip activated. I think he'll be a good antagonist, and I'm really interested to see how the show handles his fate. Will he be someone the Bad Batch has to kill? Will they save him somehow? I mean, we did see some of that for the first time really this episode, which was a good complaint that Corey brought up in our discussion we had live on the channel. Like, the Bad Batch has lost one of their brothers, one of the people that they spend all of their time with, and in episodes 1 and 2, there's not a whole lot of reflection on that. There's no sense of real loss. Now, this episode that things are slowed down, there's various moments where the team misses Crosshair, and where Hunter in particular feels guilty for not doing everything that he could have, at least as he feels, to help save him. The next and one of last subjects I want to talk about for this episode is Omega. And we keep hearing Omega knows all this information about Kamino and Kamino cloning procedures. Where is that coming from? Why did the Kaminoans share so much with a young girl, and what was her true purpose? This is one of the sort of major mysteries of Season 1, and at this point I've got no idea. We also do see that the Kaminoans are trying to produce some next generation clone. I think they make references to the fact that if they capture the Bad Batch, they may be able to use their kind of altered DNA as a new host. That's very interesting, and I do think, as people have pointed out, that they are setting the seeds here for some sort of Kaminoan/clone rebellion. It is kind of weird. In Star Wars canon, they've been very explicit that clones are phased out completely very quickly. I talked to one of the writers for Jedi Fallen Order as a part of an interview during EA Play a couple of years ago, and when I mentioned that, he explicitly said, even by this point, there are no clones. So I wonder if there's been some sort of event or plot point planned out for a while now, because we know that the Bad Batch has been an idea for some time. That's kind of been dictating how all of this works, and that maybe we'll see it pulled off in this show. That's something that I hope. Other than that, though, as with you guys, I've got no idea where this show is going. Again, same with episode 2. We go into episode 4 now with sort of a blank slate, but I do feel like it's probably time to start a longer arc. We have the beginning episode, which sets up the events of the series. We've had 2 episodes now, kind of with the Bad Batch on the run. They still will be on the run next episode, of course, and probably for most of this season, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see the beginnings of a longer story, maybe a 2 or 3 episode arc, and that's really what I'm looking forward to, and I'm looking for the show to really start to get its legs under it now that it's done such a good job in these first few episodes. So again, big fan of this one. The show continues to impress. I've talked about how great the visuals are in every other episode discussion, so I don't need to harp on them here, but of course the show looks phenomenal. It's really exceeded my expectations in pretty much every aspect. And I do also want to mention, I don't know how I didn't mention this earlier, but it's great to see the continued development of Omega's relationship with the clones and the Bad Batch. Wrecker, especially this episode, making her the room at the end was very, very sweet. I'm still not sure whether the relationship is going to be more similar to a father-daughter or father's-daughter relationship or brothers and sisters. Either way, it does have a very different feeling than Grogu in The Mandalorian, which I know some people were worried about. So all in all, great episode. I'm really excited to see where the next one takes us. But until then, guys, be safe, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.